Let's bring in Al Jazeera senior political analyst Marwan Bashar. Marwan, it's difficult to know where to start. There's so much to talk about here. Let's start with that. Tulsi Gabbard. And the US and Israeli objectives in this war are not aligned.
And it's no secret. It is no secret. But Tulsi is probably the only freewheeler, if you will, in the Trump administration. She's kind of she stands out for not being the total Zionist or Christian Zionist. She's proven from the very beginning she's kind of more independent thinking and more America first. Let's not get involved overseas in more forever wars. She's the one who also, a few months ago, made the point that it is not, a sure case that Iran is or intends to develop nuclear weapons. So she does stand out, but, refreshingly, she's the one who's speaking a bit more frankly about the kind of challenges the Trump administration is facing, including or notably with the one from Israel, because what happened the past 48 hours is not a joke. It's a hugely reckless escalation that we all seem to be lost about, who's behind it. Is there really a good cop, bad cop between Trump and Netanyahu? Is Trump hiding behind Netanyahu as Netanyahu carries those reckless acts that undermine regional security, Gulf security, energy security? Or is Netanyahu making a mockery out of the American president?
If the US did know, if the president was lying, what on earth would be the strategic logic for doing so, for denying it so publicly?
This is the thing. I mean, one could argue that he did not know. Maybe someone on a very low operational level in the Gulf knew, but up there in Washington at the middle of the night, they didn't know. He wasn't updated. It's very possible that Netanyahu is doing his own dirty work, and Trump plays catch up. See, one of the things that I am bewildered about here, Adrian, I'm actually dumbfounded, right? I don't hear it. I mean, I watched our channel, I watch other channels, I'm hanging around watching channels, which I usually don't do, TV. But I'm dumbfounded as to why can't we just report the facts about Netanyahu's role here, right? What is so difficult? It doesn't require analysis, okay? What I'm going to tell you next, I'm not doing analysis, I'm doing reporting, right? Netanyahu has been pushing for attacking Iran for more than a quarter of a century. In 2002, he testified in front of Congress saying, it's not enough to go after Iraq, we have to go after Iran, Libya, this, that, and the other. For the past 20 years, he's been inciting against Iran nonstop. He undermined the previous American president, that is Obama, and Biden, when they tried to reach a nuclear deal with Iran. In fact, when the deal was reached, Netanyahu went to Congress and lobbied against it. And we know that Netanyahu visited with Trump a bit less than a dozen times, some 10 times, in order to convince him about the question of Iran, to manipulate him on the question of Iran. Those are the facts, right? Those are the facts. Let me add a couple of other facts so we know who we are dealing with, what kind of character. Did you hear the past day or two or three or four that this man we're talking about is indicted on crime wars by the International Criminal Court? I mean, have you heard that? Just the past few days. But we are dealing with a man who's launching a war, who just launched a reckless, provocative attack on energy sources in the Gulf, leading to further escalation. And he's an indicted war criminal. He's responsible for the death of 150,000 Palestinians, according to the Lancet report, their most recent report. This is the person we're dealing with. This is the guy who's been manipulating the American president bilaterally, but also through his network of Zionists and Christian Zionists in Washington, in the Trump administration. I mean, the closest people to Trump on this question are Netanyahu's people. These are facts. These are not analysis.
Does Trump know that he's been played, which is what you're accusing Netanyahu of here? I just want to read you a couple of quotes from his press conference, which took place in the last hour. He said, I can't do a revolution from the air. There needs to be a ground component as well. There are many possibilities for a ground component. I won't share what they are. He said we need alternative routes that avoid the Strait of Hormuz and Red Sea choke points, as if he doesn't have an atlas on it. What do you make of that?
Look, let me tell you first, again, let's be a bit refreshing. Adrian, you don't want to hear more of the same, right? Let's have a bit of a outside-the-box thinking, right? Let me give you something shocking, right? How about ending the war? How about ending the war? It's been 20 days. They destroyed the hell out of Iran. Why not just end the war? That will definitely open the Strait of Hormuz tomorrow.
But how? How, Marwan? How? How can you end that? Where's the off-ramp?
This war was started by the United States and Israel. They can't end it. They started it. They can't end it. They can't end the war now by stopping the bombing, stopping the deployment. They started it, right? On February 28th. It wasn't planned. It wasn't thought through. It wasn't here. All the countries in this region were not consulted. They were not coordinated with, and they were not informed that the actual bombing was going to start February 28th. Well, now 20 days later, why not just stop the war? Why doesn't America and Israel stop the war? Why doesn't Trump order Netanyahu to stop the war? So that's one thing to do. Second is to escalate. I said already 4 days ago, I said we are at an inflection point. Either you wind down the war or it's going to have to escalate. This is the time for mission creep. When you start talking about deploying soldiers, when you're talking about having to deploy into the islands or to deploy into the coastal areas of Iran, when you have to take those kinds of measures, this is the definition of mission creep. This is the definition of debacle, that you start deploying troops, then you have to protect these troops, you have to protect where they eat and where they sleep, and that's what you get into the kind of disaster that is called an occupation of a foreign country 2 oceans away. And that's exactly what Netanyahu is actually looking for. He wants the United States to be involved in another Gulf war where the United States, on behalf of Israel, does the dirty work against Iran. That already is showing to be a disastrous calculations. Now, all of it again, right? I mean, it's not new. We knew from years and years ago the reason why Iran probably was not actually developing or owning a nuclear bomb, because closing the Strait of Hormuz is its nuclear option. It's far better, more potent, and more destructive to the world economy if it continues to close or to hamper the Strait of Hormuz for, unlimited time. That is worse than a nuclear bomb for the world economy, for the energy markets, for regional stability. So it had, a serious option. And of course it was going to use it. We knew, the Americans knew, the Israelis knew, but the Israelis went ahead and did their reckless attack, preventive bombing of Iran, starting a war nonetheless.
Al Jazeera senior political analyst Marwan Bashar. Marwan, many thanks.